Cadet Vrixia Koldath flicked her iridescent tail dismissively as she passed the hunched figure mopping the corridor floor. The Galactic Academy of Interspecies Excellence was the most prestigious educational institution in the Orion Arm. And, as the daughter of the Koldath dynasty, rulers of 7 star systems, she couldn't fathom why they allowed humans to work here at all. "Watch yourself, dirt cleaner," she hissed, deliberately tracking her 6 taloned feet through the wet section of floor. Several of her Procyon classmates chittered appreciatively at her cruelty. The human, a grey-haired man with eyes the color of Earth's oceans, merely nodded and continued his methodical work. His name tag read Thaddeus Blackwood, though none of the alien students ever bothered to address him by name. "I heard they only have one planet," whispered Drevix, Vrixia's sycophantic companion. "And they don't even fully control it." Vrixia's facial scales rippled with amusement. "Pathetic creatures. No wonder they're only fit for scrubbing our waste." What the privileged students failed to notice was the slight stiffening in Thaddeus's shoulders, the momentary pause in his rhythmic mopping. They couldn't see the complex calculations running behind those weathered features, nor did they know that beneath his modest janitorial jumpsuit lay the insignia of the Human Diplomatic Intelligence Service. The Academy housed the offspring of the galaxy's most powerful families, a perfect observation post for humanity's most decorated intelligence operative. For 3 years, Thaddeus had maintained his cover perfectly, gathering information on the strengths and weaknesses of 17 different species while being treated as furniture. That evening, as Thaddeus finished his shift, Academy Director Folar summoned him to her office. The elegant Aldebaranian's 12 sensory tendrils waved apologetically. "Mr. Blackwood, I must apologize for Cadet Koldath's behavior. It was reported by a Vegan observer. This isn't the first incident." Thaddeus smiled gently. "No need for concern, Director. Young beings can be thoughtless, regardless of species." "Nevertheless," Fowler continued, "the Academy cannot tolerate such blatant species prejudice. I've scheduled a mandatory cultural sensitivity seminar for tomorrow." As Thaddeus left the director's office, his communicator discreetly vibrated. A message from Earth Command. "Critical, Koldath Dynasty finalizing plans for human territorial incursion. Estimated timeline 30 days. Gather intelligence authorization level Omega." Thaddeus's expression remained neutral as he pushed his janitorial cart toward the student residential wing, but his mind was already formulating a plan. Vrixia Koldath had just unwittingly placed herself at the center of a galactic chess game, and humanity's future hung in the balance. 36 hours later, Thaddeus skillfully navigated the service corridors behind the Academy's central administrative complex. His cover as maintenance staff granted him nearly invisible access to the entire facility. Today, that access would prove invaluable. The cultural sensitivity seminar had gone predictably poorly. Vrixia had sat in the back row, scales flared in defiance, while Director Folar delivered an impassioned lecture on interspecies respect. Throughout the presentation, Vrixia's personal communication device had buzzed repeatedly with encrypted messages Thaddeus had been silently intercepting. The Koldath dynasty wasn't merely planning an incursion into human space. They were orchestrating a full-scale invasion, using intelligence gathered from their daughter's position at the Academy. "Command, this is Operative Blackwood," Thaddeus whispered into his subdermal communicator. "Confirming dynasty intentions. They've developed a biological agent specifically targeted to human genetic markers. Planning deployment within 22 days. The reply came instantly. Evidence critical. Secure proof without compromising position." Thaddeus understood the stakes. Humanity, still recovering from the resource wars, couldn't withstand an attack from a 7-system empire. Their only hope was exposing the plot to the Galactic Council before it could be executed. That evening, as students gathered in the Grand Atrium for the annual Celestial Festival, Thaddeus implemented his plan. Dressed in his usual custodial uniform, he moved unnoticed among the celebration, occasionally emptying waste receptacles and wiping spills. "Look, the human is still cleaning up our messes," Vrixia announced loudly when she spotted him. She was, surrounded by her usual entourage, plus two unfamiliar figures, diplomats from her home system, based on their ceremonial attire. Thaddeus purposefully moved closer to their conversation, appearing to focus on polishing the crystalline floor tiles. "Father says the humans won't even know what hit them," Vrixia continued, her voice lowered but still audible to Thaddeus's enhanced hearing implants. "Their defensive capabilities are primitive. Once the pathogen is released, their colonies will beg for our intervention." One of the diplomats, a stately Koldathian with ceremonial battle scars, subtly silenced her. "Discussions of state matters are inappropriate in mixed company, daughter." Too late. Thaddeus had recorded everything. But as he moved away, Vrixia deliberately spilled her drink on the freshly polished floor. "Oops," she said with false sweetness. "Better clean that up quickly, human, or I'll report your incompetence to Director Folar." The surrounding students laughed, but Thaddeus noticed something unexpected, discomfort on several faces. Not all the Academy's students shared Vrixia's prejudice. In that moment, Thaddeus saw more than just evidence to collect. He saw an opportunity. The Academy's interspecies training simulation was legendary for its difficulty. Each year, mixed teams of students faced increasingly complex scenarios, designed to test their diplomatic and strategic capabilities. This year, Thaddeus had volunteered to assist with the behind-the-scenes management of the event, a request that had puzzled the administration but was ultimately granted. The janitorial staff's perspective could be valuable, he had suggested. Humbly, we observe patterns others might miss. Now, 3 days after the Celestial Festival, Thaddeus made final adjustments to the simulation parameters while teams prepared in their staging areas. Among them was Vrixia's team, the highest ranked in the Academy, thanks largely to her ruthless leadership and her teammates' privileged access to advanced technology. "Simulation commencing in 3 minutes," announced the Academy's AI system. While the students donned their neural interfaces, Thaddeus quietly implemented a subroutine he'd spent months developing. The simulation would proceed normally at first. Vrixia's team entered the virtual environment with characteristic arrogance. The scenario presented a delicate negotiation between 3 warring factions on a resource-rich frontier planet. As expected, Vrixia immediately positioned her team to exploit the weakest faction. "Look at these primitives," her avatar sneered as she reviewed data on the simulated human colony. "Just like the real ones, technologically outmatched and desperately overextended." 20 minutes into the simulation, Thaddeus activated his modification. Suddenly, Vrixia found her team's technological advantages neutralized by an unexpected electromagnetic event. The primitive human faction revealed sophisticated contingency plans, cutting off her team's escape routes and communication channels. In the control room, Director Folar's tendrils twitched with surprise. "This variation wasn't in the approved scenario," she noted. "System adaptation," Thaddeus explained smoothly. "The AI is testing their ability to handle the unexpected." Inside the simulation, Vrixia was panicking. For the first time in her academic career, she faced genuine failure. Her teammates looked to her for guidance, but her strategy, always predicated on overwhelming technological superiority, had no contingencies. "Request diplomatic intervention," suggested one teammate, a quiet Arcturian who had always deferred to Vrixia's leadership. "Absurd," We don't negotiate with lesser species, Vrixia snapped. As the simulation progressed, Vrixia's refusal to adapt led her team deeper into crisis. Meanwhile, other teams facing similar challenges were finding success through collaborative approaches, particularly those who engaged respectfully with the human faction. When the simulation concluded, Vrixia's team ranked last for the first time in Academy history. As they exited the neural interfaces, her scales had darkened with humiliation. "This simulation was rigged," she hissed at Thaddeus, who was quietly maintaining equipment nearby. "You did this somehow, didn't you, dirt cleaner?" Thaddeus merely smiled. "The simulation simply presented a reality you weren't prepared for, Cadet Koldath. Sometimes appearances can be deceiving." The seed had been planted, and as Vrixia stormed away, several of her classmates remained behind, looking at the human janitor with newfound curiosity. Word of Vrixia's unprecedented failure spread through the academy like wildfire. For 3 days, hushed conversations followed her through hallways, once dominated by her entourage. Many of her former admirers had distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with such public humiliation. Thaddeus observed these developments, while continuing his meticulous intelligence gathering. The Koldath dynasty's invasion plans were accelerating. His intercepted communications indicated they had moved the timeline forward by 8 days, perhaps concerned about potential leaks. "The human colonies near Proxima Centauri will be our first target," Vrixia dictated into her secure channel, unaware that Thaddeus had compromised it weeks ago. "Father believes neutralizing their closest outpost will demonstrate our seriousness, without immediately triggering their Sol system defenses." That evening, as Thaddeus cleaned the Academy's vast library, he encountered Lox Tumarin, a Danebian student known for his brilliant xenobiology research. Unlike most students who ignored the janitorial staff, Lox had always offered quiet acknowledgement. "Mr. Blackwood," Lox began hesitantly, his translucent appendages pulsing with nervousness. "I was wondering if I might ask you something." Thaddeus paused his work. "Of course, Cadet Tumarin. The simulation, it wasn't just a simulation, was it? There was a message there." Thaddeus studied the young Danebian carefully. "What makes you say that?" The scenario perfectly countered Koldathian military doctrine. "It's too specific to be coincidence." Lox's voice dropped to a whisper. "And I've noticed certain communications equipment in Vrixia's quarters that exceed Academy regulations, military-grade quantum encoders." This was an unexpected development, a potential ally but also a risk. Thaddeus made a calculated decision. "Meet me in Maintenance Bay 7 at 4th Bell," he said quietly. "Bring Cadet Zuloni if you trust her completely." Lox's appendages fluttered in surprise. Thaddeus had identified his closest friend without ever acknowledging their association. When 4th Bell sounded, Thaddeus found not just Lox and Mira Zuloni waiting in the maintenance bay, but 5 other students representing different species. Each had independently noticed discrepancies in Vrixia's behavior or questioned the dynasty's increasingly aggressive stance toward human territories. "I believe the Academy is being used to gather intelligence for an unprovoked attack on human colonies," Thaddeus explained, maintaining his humble demeanor but speaking with newfound authority. "The Koldath dynasty plans to deploy a species-specific bioweapon." Instead of dismissal or disbelief, he was met with solemn nods. "We suspected something," said Mira, a brilliant Arcturian strategist, "but we didn't realize the scope." "What can we do?" asked Lox. "The dynasty has representatives on the Galactic Council. They'll deny everything." Thaddeus smiled, the first genuine smile he'd shown at the Academy in 3 years. "We create a situation where denial is impossible," he said. "But I'll need your help." The Academy's annual exhibition was its most prestigious event, a display of student achievements attended by diplomats, military leaders, and media from across the galaxy. This year's exhibition would feature something unexpected. 3 days of frantic, covert preparation had transformed Thaddeus's small group of allied students into an intelligence operation that would have impressed Earth Command. Each had played to their strengths. Lox had identified the biological markers of the Koldath weapon from data stolen from Vrixia's quarters. Mira had mapped the dynasty's planned invasion routes. Others had gathered corroborating evidence from various sources. Thaddeus had finally revealed his true identity to the group, showing them his intelligence service credentials. Rather than shock, he'd been met with excitement. I knew humans couldn't be as simple as Vrixia claimed. Ekraz, a Rigelian engineering student, had exclaimed, "No species survives interstellar expansion without profound capabilities." The exhibition hall buzzed with activity as dignitaries toured elaborate displays of scientific and diplomatic achievements. Vrixia stood proudly beside her project, an advanced cultural analysis that Thaddeus knew contained thinly veiled justifications for species-based hierarchy, with Koldathians at the apex and humans near the bottom. Director Folar rang the ceremonial chime, calling for attention. Distinguished guests, faculty and students, welcome to our 247th annual exhibition. Before we begin the formal presentations, we have a last-minute addition to our program. Confusion rippled through the crowd as Thaddeus stepped onto the central platform, still wearing his janitorial uniform. "This is highly irregular," protested the Koldath ambassador, Vrixia's father, who had arrived that morning as a special. "A guest? I believe you'll find it informative, Ambassador," Director Folar replied coolly. Her earlier briefing by Thaddeus and the student group had left her deeply disturbed by the plot unfolding within her academy. "My name is Commander Thaddeus Blackwood of the Human Diplomatic Intelligence Service," Thaddeus began, his voice carrying an authority that silenced the murmurs instantly. "For 3 years, I have served as a janitor in this academy, observing a conspiracy that threatens galactic peace." With a gesture, he activated the holographic display. Detailed plans for the invasion of human space materialized in the air, alongside molecular structures of the bioweapon and intercepted communications bearing the Koldath seal. This evidence was gathered with the assistance of Academy students, who recognized that true interspecies excellence means standing against prejudice and aggression, regardless of the source. The 7 students who had worked with Thaddeus stepped forward, each presenting additional evidence. Lox demonstrated how the bioweapon targeted specific human genetic markers. Mira outlined the strategic invasion plan. Ambassador Koldath's scales flushed dark with rage. "These are fabrications. This human has manipulated impressionable students." "The evidence is independently verifiable," countered Director Folar. "And representatives of the Galactic Council Security Division are already analyzing backup copies." Vrixia stood frozen, her carefully constructed world collapsing. The human janitor she had mocked repeatedly, the insignificant creature she had deemed worthy only of cleaning her messes, had systematically dismantled her family's plans and exposed their crimes to the galaxy. "You," she finally managed, facing Thaddeus. "How? You're just a human, a janitor." Thaddeus approached her calmly, his expression not triumphant but compassionate. "That was your fundamental mistake, Cadet Koldath. You judged an entire species based on your preconceptions, never questioning whether there might be more beneath the surface. Humanity didn't survive its own violent history and reach the stars by being simple or weak." The exhibition hall erupted in commotion as security division officers moved to detain the ambassador. News representatives transmitted the unfolding scandal across the galaxy. Within hours, the Galactic Council would convene an emergency session to address the Koldath conspiracy. As Vrixia was escorted away, Thaddeus turned to address the assembled students. "Today's events reveal the Academy's most important lesson. True strength comes not from domination or technology, but from recognizing the value in all sentient beings. Remember this day not as a human victory, but as a victory for the principles this institution was founded upon. 3 months later, the Academy unveiled a new course requirement, Perspectives in Service, where students would work alongside those they might otherwise never engage with. The course was taught by Professor Thaddeus Blackwood, whose janitorial cart remained displayed in the Academy Museum, a reminder that appearances can be deceiving and that underestimating humanity was a mistake the galaxy would not make again.